over time, through the things that I've done with public relations, it has started to become more accurate about me. So that's a thing that, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years ago, if you weren't showing up in Google, you were basically irrelevant. Today, that's what the AI tools are. If you're not showing up in these AI tools with accurate and credible information about yourself, then you're going to become irrelevant pretty damn quickly. And that's one of the biggest parts that I think almost nobody in the PR world is talking about, nobody in the marketing world is really talking about, is getting cited in these LLMs so that when people are using them for their research, they're going to find information that presents you as a credible authority.
Welcome to all our fam. Thank you for joining us. We're back at the Pete Podcast, where we discuss the latest in REI tech, trends, and inspo. My name's MJ. I'm going to be your host, and I'm super excited to welcome Jeremy Knauff to the show today. So thanks for being here, Jeremy.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So for those of you who don't know, Jeremy is an entrepreneur. He's a well-renowned speaker, author, USMC veteran as well, and he's launched a number of different businesses, but really, he is a leader when it comes to public relations and marketing. So we're kind of excited to pick his brain a little bit about, what is this all about for those of us who are not as familiar with those things. So I guess just to get us started, can you tell us a little bit about how you got here, and where it all began?
That's it's kind of an interesting journey. I started my first agency shortly after getting out of the Marine Corps. And I realized all the things I didn't know about business and quickly crashed that first agency. For years I thought, oh, well, it's because I got into that way too early, right? I started a web design agency in this little tiny town called Spring Hill in Florida. Okay. And this was in 1999. And, I think as entrepreneurs, as we evolve and grow, we learn what we didn't know when we thought we knew something. And at the time, I thought that I had just kind of come into this industry way too early in a little small town. Reality is that's kind of bullshit, because if I wanted it to be successful, regardless of if anyone in the town understood the value of a website back in 1999, there's millions upon millions of entrepreneurs all over the country. So, I could have gone and, got on the phone and tried to sell companies in other states. So anyway, the lesson there was there's always options. There's always a path forward, even if you don't see it. But I spent the next few years kind of regrouping and learning what I needed to know to be successful in my next venture. Along the way, I got a job at an ad agency with one of the most amazing humans I've ever met in my life. The guy was a wealth of knowledge. He had spent something like 40, 50 years in the advertising and marketing industry. So he just had such a depth of knowledge, and I learned so much while I was there. And then eventually from there, I knew that my big weakness was sales. So I went and I got a few different sales jobs and really honed and refined my skills on that. And I did kind of suck at it at times. And so, I made a point to kind of bounce from industry to industry, selling different things to really develop that deep, but also broad knowledge of how to be more effective at sales.
And can I ask you just a quick question there? Because,
yeah,
it's a unique thing to hear often when someone says, hey, I know I'm not good at this. They either try to supplement that by working with someone else who can offer that skill set. So what was it that I guess prompted you to say, hey, I'm not great at sales, but I kind of want to conquer that? Like what was behind that, right? To go to 3 different sales positions in different industries, that's really, I commend you for it. It's not what you often hear. So
yeah, well, I would say it's a combination of 2 things. One is childhood trauma, and 2 is
why is that always behind? That's always behind. That's always an answer.
It always is. It always is. But also the other was, I feel like if you're going to build a company, you need to understand the different aspects of your company. In order to lead those people, you need to understand their job. You may not have to do it as well as they do, but you still have to have a reasonable amount of competency in that job. It's just like in the Marine Corps, right? It wasn't like, oh, well, I'm a commanding officer, so I don't have to know how to do a patrol. No, that's bullshit. You have to know how to do everything.
Yeah.
So I wanted to build that skill so that, salespeople they're great at persuading people. They're great at convincing people, which doesn't just apply to prospects. It applies to management as well. So they can come in and absolutely bullshit you. And if you don't know what you're looking for, you're going to find yourself paying out a salary for someone who's not delivering results. And they've got a million great reasons why, and none of them are their fault. So I felt like I had to get that skill, and then as far as the childhood trauma thing, like, I don't want to have to depend on somebody. So I wanted to build that skill. But I mean, ultimately, it does come down to, it is a valuable thing that you need, even if you're not doing sales in the day-to-day. You need that from a leadership perspective so that you can talk to your team, so that you can listen to what they're saying and decipher the legitimate complaints from the bullshit, so that you can coach them and guide them and give them what they need to do their job, because otherwise it's all theory. I worked at a company where it was a software company back in the early I think it was like 99. And great company, lots of opportunity. I learned a ton there, but management was so disconnected from sales that, they would give out these absolute shit leads, like scraped from phone books. It's like, okay, so you're trying to sell a $5,000 software training program to people that you just scraped out of a phone book. Like, that is
who wouldn't even give you $5, right? Like,
right. Right. So when management is so disconnected from the day-to-day operations, they can't lead effectively. So that was a key reason that I really wanted to get out there and hone that skill.
Yeah, I think that's wonderful. I mean, it allows you to really stay connected to the heartbeat of whatever company it is you're building, or whatever it is you're going to do in the future, to have a little bit of insight and depth into the various silos that exist within a company or are needed for a company to thrive. You kind of have to have had some experience within those roles. So
yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
That's great. Well, I'm sorry I interrupted, so go for it.
All good. Well, from there, I eventually got back to the point where I'm like, all right, I'm ready to start my next company. Started a full service digital marketing agency.
Okay.
We did everything: web design, social media, SEO. SEO was actually one of our core focuses. And I ran that successfully for many years until, and I know you're familiar with this story, I was blindsided by we'll call it a mystery health crisis, that basically completely derailed my entire life. It nearly killed me. I spent about 2 years on my deathbed, and during that time, the business withered away to pretty much nothing. And then as I'm getting to the end of my rope, and we had burned through everything we had just trying to keep me alive, the business is producing pretty much nothing for revenue, and we're out of money. And now here I am. I was probably, it was probably late 30s, early 40s. I'm now basically starting over, not just at zero, but at less than zero, because, we had racked up a bunch of debt in this process as well. So from there, I'm very much an action-taking type of person. So I didn't really sit down and formulate a big elaborate plan or develop a strategy. I just jumped into action. And I started leveraging public relations without really realizing it at first. I started off just writing every day on the blog on our website. And then I had a few articles that really took off. And then I leveraged those to pitch myself as a guest on a few SEO podcasts. And those episodes were some of the most downloaded episodes they had ever had. And then I used that to pitch myself into a guest column, writing an article at first one of the top SEO publications in the world, and then the other top SEO publication in the world. and then turned those into recurring columns, published dozens of articles over the years. And then that turned into Forbes and Entrepreneur and Inc. and everything under the sun. And, as entrepreneurs, we sometimes get stuck in the day-to-day, in the trenches, and we don't see what's right in front of us. So it was a few years from that point where eventually I was like, well, hold on a minute. Everybody needs this. We know all these amazing entrepreneurs out here who are really focused on bringing tremendous value to their clients. And meanwhile, you've got these scumbags out here who don't really care if they bring any value as long as they're cashing that check.
Yep.
And so that was when I pivoted to focusing entirely on PR to help elevate those people who are really bringing value, and in the process also drown out the scumbags who are not.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And was your prior media company, was that still around, or had that, had you said goodbye to that and kind of pivoted, or,
Same company. I just
Okay.
pivoted. Always a scary process. Yeah. Because you're cutting off all these other potential revenue streams and then just going all in on the one. So, I will admit that I left the old website in place for a really long time.
Mm-hmm.
I just
Was that just
focused on-
because it was hard to say goodbye, or really like you were afraid of, like folks knowing that as, hey, this is, what Spartan Media is, this is where we find them and what they're up to. And it's kind of tough to say goodbye to that.
Yeah, it's probably a combination of things. A lot of people will get on a path and then they don't want to change direction because they're afraid of what people will think.
Mm-hmm.
So that is always a factor. I, of course, was concerned, well, what if we pivot to this and we can't generate enough revenue, and we've now got rid of all these other revenue streams, these other services we can provide.
Yeah.
So I just kind of left it in place for a little while. I don't know. It was probably 6 to 12 months that I left it all in place.
Some would say that might be have been the responsible thing to do. So, maybe cautious. But...
Yeah, cautious. We'll never know. But at the end of the day, it worked out. We made the pivot. Then we completely rebranded everything, and that's what we've been doing for several years now. And, just getting out there and getting great people featured in the media so they could become a recognized authority in their industry.
Okay. So right now, the name of your company is Spartan Media, and the focus is primarily PR and marketing. Is that correct?
I would say primarily PR. I mean,
PR. Okay.
The Venn diagram, there's a fair amount of overlap here.
Yeah.
PR is not technically considered marketing, but it rhymes, right?
Yeah. Well, and who would you say, who is primarily benefiting from the company's services? Is it entrepreneurs in a certain industry, or is it investors? Who do you find of late, at least, that you've been working with?
Yeah, a good portion of our clients right now are real estate investors, but we work with all kinds of entrepreneurs. I've got a client that was with us from damn near the beginning. I think we've been working with him for like 16, 17 years now at this point. He's in a completely unrelated industry, nothing to do with real estate whatsoever.
He made changes as well.
Yeah, well, he actually, he made a lot of changes. The funny thing is, I met him back when I ran Spartan as a full service agency.
Mm-hmm.
And we were both serving a particular client together. And, in this case, the client was a national drug testing company.
Mm-hmm.
And so he had seen the effects of drug abuse in his own life, and kind of saw how that plays out. And he was so moved by what they were doing that he sold his company. At the time, he ran a printing company. He sold his printing company and went to become the chief marketing officer at that company.
Wow. Okay.
It got really interesting, though, because the founder of that company, we'll say he made some promises that he couldn't keep to the franchisees. And between you and me, they brought on a lot of people as franchisees that they should not have brought on. Yep. That not everyone is built to be an entrepreneur.
Yep.
So they brought in a lot of execs from Fortune 500 companies who thought this was just going to be like your day-to-day job in a cubicle. It's not.
Mm-mm.
So they had some conflicts that started to arise, and they had, I think it was 19 franchisees just get up and walk away. And
out of how many roughly?
At the time, there was probably close to 90, something in that range. Fairly large company. Yeah. And I don't know how much you know about franchises, but the FDD document is a 30-year term. So they were committed to paying those royalties for 30 years. Wow. So to get out of that, what they ended up doing was they filed a frivolous class action lawsuit, or they tried to file a class action lawsuit. Their lawyer was a bit shady. Not really a fan of the tactics, but I do respect his approach. He was ruthless, and he encouraged them to go get online and attack the company everywhere. So now the company's, everything about the company, like the first 3 pages of the search results, were completely filled with just terrible information about the company, and most of it was not true. So the founder then had to step down, and my friend had to now step up as the CEO, because
my goodness,
the relationships there, the relationship was so toxic, there was no fixing it at that point. They hated the founder. So we had to come in and take him from, he's not in that industry. He's never run a business in that industry, which ties back to what we were talking about before. He's never done the thing.
Yeah. The thing that he's leading. Yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm. He had no credibility, no authority, no nothing. And as a result of this whole issue, they had dwindled down. At one point, they were the fastest growing franchise in the country. Then they dwindled down to about $300K in revenue. And so we had to turn that around for them, put him up, establish him as an expert in that industry, and took them from, like I said, about $300K in revenue. We took them to over $8 million in revenue. And, he was sitting on the board of the top association in the industry, helped found a separate trade association in that industry. He's been to Congress to lobby them on behalf of the industry, right? So from nothing to absolute top of the food chain.
Yeah. We have to talk after this, Jeremy. So, if you are a PR wizard of this level and scope, I think there's things that we should discuss.
Yes.
Well, so like in your time though, having, run a full service agency to now what you're focused on with more PR, what are some changes that you've seen in marketing, that you've seen in PR? What are some things that are like markedly different than when you had kind of started that I don't know, you think are worth mentioning for those of us who aren't thinking about this all the time, all day long?
You mean normal people?
Yeah. Hey.
So, there's definitely been a lot of things that have changed. The entire business model of the media has changed dramatically. It used to be everything was wide open to the public. Everything was just published and out there and available. And now more and more media outlets are going behind a paywall. A lot of them are not accepting outside contributors anymore. There's a lot of management to that. So they're starting to cut back on that. In fact, when you and I connected in, what was it, San Antonio? Where were we with Hambright?
That's a good question. Somewhere in Texas. Yeah.
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 That morning, when you and I were talking about that real estate thing, I had just found out that we lost. We had basically a full pipeline at a tier 1 media outlet where over the span of like 2 years, literally everything but 2 articles I submitted to them was published. I was putting people in there with their own columns just on a ridiculous number of times every year. And then they pulled the plug on that after their IPO because they didn't want to manage outside contributors anymore. Yeah. So you're seeing a lot of changes like that, where a lot of the opportunities that used to be there are gone. The other thing I'm seeing is kind of the role that AI plays in the media, but also with entrepreneurs. So one of the things I see people do a lot is they'll use a tool like, it's not called Haro anymore. He sold Haro. Are you familiar with Haro when it used to be around?
No, what's that?
So it was a tool called Haro, Help a Reporter Out. This guy started it, probably 15 or more years ago. And basically it was when a journalist needed an expert source, they would put a query into this newsletter, and then all the subscribers, if the query was relevant to them, they would respond to that journalist with their answer to the questions.
Okay.
And it was a great resource at first. It became kind of a dumpster fire over the years. A lot of people abused it in various ways and made it basically useless. But a lot of people, and there's a lot of other tools like that now. But what a lot of people are doing, because most people write like a drunk toddler, so they can't communicate well. And most people,
as someone who has a toddler at home, I can vouch. Yep.
Is she drunk right now?
God, I hope not. She's being watched by her grandmother, so and she doesn't drink, so I'm hoping for good things.
All right, good. And then of course everybody is busier than we've ever been, so a lot of people will resort to using AI to write their response. The problem's multifaceted. The first part of the problem is people who deal with words all day can tell when something's been written by AI. And there's not like a formula or a pattern. There's it's kind of a gut feel, right? The people who sit there and write all day and read and edit all day, those people can spot AI that fast. Yeah. So that pisses journalists off. And there's numerous private groups behind the scenes that you guys never get access to. It's just for people in the media. And that's something I see journalists complain about all the time. And so if you're using AI to write your responses, write your answers for journalists, there's a good chance that, first of all, you're not going to get featured in that piece, but you also likely will get called out in these private groups and often put on blacklists. And once that happens, like, you could be doing everything else right and just be ignored because you're on this list.
Yeah.
The other problem there is that AI hallucinates a lot. It just makes shit up out of thin air.
Or it's pulling from sources that have hallucinated or have made shit up, right? So it's like I think there's a lot of folks using AI and putting in very broad and vague prompts, right? Not asking for fact checking or credible sources to be referenced, before giving a response. So
yeah,
that's kind of part of it, right?
Absolutely.
The spreading of just information that it's not accurate always.
Right. The other side of that equation is actually showing up in those tools, right? So have you looked in like ChatGPT or Grok or anything and see what it says about you?
Or like, I've messed around a little bit. Yeah.
Okay. So most people don't show up in those tools at all. And there's a very specific methodology to showing up there. What you put on your
show up. What do you mean when you say?
Well, like, for example, if you go and ask about me, it has a ton of information. Right.
Yeah.
It's got a ton of information about me, and most of it's accurate. When these things first started gaining popularity, I kind of dabbled with them a little bit. And I remember looking at what it would tell me about me in the beginning. This was several years ago. And one of the things it would often cite is it would say that I was an Army Ranger, or that I was an airborne.
Okay.
And from working with John, I think you know how bad that is. You don't call a Marine an Army guy.
No.
But over time, through the things that I've done with public relations, it has started to become more accurate about me. So that's a thing that, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years ago, if you weren't showing up in Google, you were basically irrelevant. Mm-hmm. Today, that's what the AI tools are. If you're not showing up in these AI tools with accurate and credible information about yourself, then you're going to become irrelevant pretty damn quickly. And that's one of the biggest parts that I think almost nobody in the PR world is talking about, nobody in the marketing world is really talking about is getting cited in these LLMs so that when people are using them for their research, they're going to find information that presents
And
you
show
as a
up.
credible authority. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think that's valid. I mean, there's some folks who have kind of started that conversation, but it comes back to, the work that you're doing on the PR front, right? Is how do you show up? Outside of having enough content and things that you're putting out and broadcasting out, into the world, how do you make sure that actually comes up?
So
yeah,
this is something I've talked about. I've talked about this at family before. I've also talked about it in my community, but there's kind of the high level overview. The information on your website and your social media is the least important part of this, right? So that information is there,
okay,
but nobody's going to put on their website, oh, hey, like I really suck and I'm just here for your check, right? It'd be great if they did.
yeah,
But yeah, so the information on your website and on your social media is great because that's a source of information.
mm-hmm.
But these LLMs require third-party validation of who you are and what you're capable of. Okay. So if you have that third-party validation, then the information in your website and your social media will be used. So the way to do this is, first of all, yes, put all that information on your website. Make sure that it's available to Google and all the crawlers and all of that. Also, although there's not 100% definitive proof of this, a lot of the experiments I've conducted indicate that schema plays a big role as well.
Okay.
Which is basically code on the back end that people never see, but it basically tells the bots, kind of helps connect the dots around the entities, you as an individual, you as a company, the products or services or the industries that you're in. Like there's a lot of, right. So it's kind of like an entity map. And if you're running on a WordPress website, it's pretty easy. There's a few different plugins for that you can use and they're all free.
Yeah.
But then beyond that, you have to get cited in the media. So,
well, and is that what you meant by third-party validation? I was going to ask, do you mean certifications? Do you mean, so yeah, walk us through that a little bit.
Yeah, certifications don't really mean anything, nor do degrees or any of that.
I'll just stop the 15 that I'm doing right now on the side.
There you go. Pull the plug. No, but getting cited in the media plays a huge role. So press releases can be a factor, but they are the smaller portion of that. The bigger portion is legitimate editorial features at trusted media outlets. So, probably, biggestrealestateexpert.com is not going to be one of the sources that the LLMs rely on, or that other website that you were asking me about a few weeks ago.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I've forgotten the name since. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But they do look at legitimate tier 1 media outlets, Entrepreneur, Forbes, Inc., Fox Business, Wall Street Journal, all of those. So if you're getting cited in those, then that's something that the LLMs are going to look at and use as evidence that you are an authority in that space. And then once that exists, then they will go back and they will start looking at the information on your website and on your social and taking that with more authority than if the third party validation did not exist.
Yeah, wasn't there. Well, and correct me if I'm wrong, for folks who are listening who are interested in learning more, because this is giving us a bunch of great, I feel like we're just teasing everyone now, or you are rather. But for those of us who want to learn more, who are interested in exploring and kind of going down this rabbit hole of PR and building our personal brands, our company brands, making sure that we show up, you've just recently launched a coaching community. Is that right? The Spartan Community. So yeah, tell us a little bit about that. And, for those who are interested, what they can kind of expect to get out of it. And
So high level this is a low ticket program, $47 a month, right? Something anybody can afford. And basically we teach the same strategies and tactics that I use in my agency every day to our community. So, anything from how to craft a pitch to how to build an effective personal brand, how to get cited in the LLMs, these AI tools, things like that. So each month we'll teach a particular topic, but then everything we've ever taught in there is logged in the portal. So all the videos are there, all the material. There's a ton of resources, as well as a whole suite of software that we've developed to help them be more effective in their marketing.
That's great.
So that's the community in a nutshell. Like I was telling you before, right now we've just been doing kind of a soft beta launch. We haven't done any public marketing of it yet, but that's something we're probably going to be kicking off in the next week or two here.
Okay. That's really exciting. I'm excited for the folks that kind of come through and, for the insights that they get to learn. Is it, are there other members that are part of the community, like on the coaching side, or is it just going to be you for now, Jeremy? How's that working?
On the coaching side, no, I'm the one that does all the coaching and teaching there. Every now and then we may bring in some other experts at some point, but that's not really in the cards right now. But we do have, people from a variety of industries. They're all doing different things. So there's a lot of opportunity beyond the community itself, like the education and resources. There's also a lot of collaboration opportunity there as well. So
that's great.
A lot of cool people to align with and do cool things with and make money.
Yeah. Well, you heard it here on the Pete Podcast. I just want to say thank you for all the time today, Jeremy. Again, it's Jeremy Knauff.
Pleasure.
Spartan Media, Spartan Community. You'll see all of his info, in the caption below. But please follow along with the work that he's doing. And if you want to show up in the world, not only for yourself, but also digital media wise and out there, then he's the guy to talk to. So thanks again, Jeremy.
Thanks for having me.